Welcome to The Deep Dive. This is where we help you get, well, really informed about something you're curious about fast.
Yeah, no need to wade through tons of text. We do the digging for you.
We pull out the core ideas, the things that make you go, aha.
Exactly.
And today, we're diving into a book that really shook things up in terms of how we see the human mind. It's Descartes' Error, Emotion, Reason, and the Human Brain by Antonio Damasio.
Mm-hmm. And our main source, interestingly, is its page on a big online retailer. You know, the descriptions, reviews, author info, it actually gives a pretty good snapshot.
It does. So our mission today.
Well, it's to get a handle on the big challenge Damasio throws down to traditional thinking about emotion and reason.
And why that maybe matters more in our day-to-day lives than you might think at first.
Definitely. Could be some real eye-openers here.
Okay, let's jump in. We kind of have to start with René Descartes, right?
Right. The big one. I think, therefore I am.
Yeah, and that phrase, whether we consciously think about it or not, it's deeply influenced Western thought. It often leads to this idea that reason is, like, separate from emotion.
And not just separate, but superior.
Exactly. Like, we've got this pure logical processor upstairs, and then this messy, inconvenient bundle of feelings we need to control or ignore.
Precisely. And for centuries, that view really dominated philosophy science. Even early neuroscience tended to focus much more on cognition, kind of sidelining emotions as maybe noise in the system.
Right. Until Damasio.
Yeah.
Sure.
In 1995, he publishes Descartes' Error. And, I mean, just look at the subtitle. Emotion, Reason, and the Human Brain. That signals a huge shift.
It really does. And to make his case, he starts with this incredible, almost unbelievable story from 1848.
Phineas Gage.
Phineas Gage, yeah. So picture this guy. He's a construction foreman in Vermont. And apparently really good at his job.
Top notch. The description was the most efficient and capable on his crew. He was in charge of blasting rock for railroad tracks.
A reliable, focused kind of guy.
Known for being level-headed, good judgment. But then, one afternoon, disaster strikes. They're tamping gunpowder into a hole for blasting.
Standard procedure back then, right?
Yeah, but something went wrong. He was using this long iron rod, like a spear, to pack the powder. Maybe got distracted. They hadn't added the sand yet.
Oh, no?
The rod hits rock, makes a spark, and boom! The explosion sends the rod flying right up.
Flying where?
Right through his face. Entered his left cheek, went through the base of his skull, through the front part of his brain,
Wow.
and clean out the top of his head. Landed like 30 yards away.
Oh, my God. That sounds instantly fatal.
You'd think so, but, and this is the astonishing part, Phineas Gage didn't die. Not right away. Seriously. Minutes later, he's reportedly talking. His men carry him to an ox cart, and he sits upright for the ride back to town.
Upright, after having an iron rod shot through his head.
Yeah. Walked with a bit of help off the cart. It's just mind-blowing to imagine.
Yeah. Absolutely mind-blowing. So he survives this unbelievable trauma. But he wasn't the same, was he? That's the key part.
That is the absolute key, because while he survived and his basic intelligence, memory, movement seemed okay eventually, his personality, his decision-making reportedly drastically changed.
Okay, so how does this connect to Damasio's big idea?
Well, this case, and others like it, that Damasio studied later with patients who had damage to similar brain areas.
Which area was it for Gage?
The prefrontal cortex, right at the front of the brain. It's heavily involved in planning, making decisions, regulating social behavior, processing emotions, basically executive functions.
Got it.
And what Damasio noticed, starting with Gage and then confirmed with modern patients, was that damage here seemed to disconnect emotion from reasoning. And this led him to his central idea.
Which is?
That emotions aren't a hindrance to reason. They're actually essential for it, for rational thought, for making good decisions, for behaving normally in social situations.
Whoa, okay, so the complete opposite of the old view.
Exactly. He argues, based on these cases, that when you lose the ability to process and integrate emotion, your rationality actually breaks down.
So it's not like you become Spock, purely logical.
No, quite the opposite. You might struggle terribly with making even simple choices, or you might make choices that are disastrous for your life, even if you can logically list the pros and cons.
Why? How do emotions help reason, according to Damasio?
He suggests that emotions and feelings are kind of like summaries of your body's state in response to something. They're signals, that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Damasio would say that's your brain integrating past emotional experiences linked to similar situations, giving you a quick, non-conscious heads up. Like, warning, this path led to trouble before.
So Feelings are information.
Vital information, yeah. He talks about them as a direct sensing of our body states, a link between the body, survival mechanisms, and consciousness itself. It bridges mind and body.
That's a profoundly different way of looking at ourselves.
It really is. And looking at the book's description online, you see it called things like an ambitious and meticulous foray into the nature of being.
High praise. And a landmark exploration of the relationship between emotion and reason. They recognized it was big.
Absolutely. It wasn't just some minor tweak. It was presented as fundamentally challenging centuries of thought. The reviews emphasized Damasio being one of the world's leading neurologists, giving it that scientific weight.
Yeah, I saw a quote from the Financial Times that was really evocative, something like, "We may well be about to discover that the heart is, after all, in the head."
Isn't that great? It perfectly captures that reversal. And the book's own description mentions Damasio's journey, how he went from doubting the traditional separation to forming this testable hypothesis, really spurred on by Gage.
So the evidence from patients was key. People who lost emotional capacity actually lost practical reasoning ability.
Precisely. Their ability to navigate life effectively, make advantageous decisions, maintain social bonds, it suffered, even if their IQ scores were fine.
It connects mind and body in such an integral way.
Exactly. Reviews often highlight that, the integration, the inseparability of emotion and rationality. One reader review even said it makes you see mankind's place in the world in a new light.
That's powerful stuff. Now, was it considered an easy read? I saw some mention of technical language.
Yeah, that comes up. It is neuroscience, so some reviews do note it can get technical. But interestingly, others praised Damasio for a clear and engaging writing style.
So maybe challenging but rewarding.
Seems like it. He's trying to bridge complex science with broader philosophical implications. And speaking of the author...
Right, Antonio Damasio himself, what's his background?
Well, he's a highly respected neurologist and neuroscientist, at the time and now associated with places like the University of Southern California, directing a brain research institute focused on emotion and creativity.
Impressive.
And also affiliated with the Salk Institute. He's definitely a major figure in the field.
And he wrote other significant books too, right? Like The Feeling of What Happens.
Yes, and Looking for Spinoza. He's continued exploring these themes of emotion, consciousness, and the brain, a deep thinker on the subject.
Okay, so let's sort of wrap this up. The big takeaway.
The big takeaway is Damasio's powerful challenge to that old idea that reason and emotion are separate, with reason on top.
Right. He uses cases like Phineas Gage to argue they're fundamentally interconnected.
Yeah, that emotions are actually essential for rational thinking, for making good decisions, for navigating our social world effectively. No emotions doesn't mean better logic. It can mean a breakdown in practical reasoning.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? For you listening, how might this change how you view your own decisions?
Do you push feelings aside trying to be rational, or could acknowledging them actually be part of being rational?
Maybe it's not about controlling emotions out of the picture, but understanding the information they provide.
Exactly. And that leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Could it be that our emotions aren't just, messy feelings to be managed, but actually crucial sources of intelligence, information that pure, cold logic might miss entirely?
A different kind of intelligence.
Perhaps. Something vital we often overlook. If that intrigues you, definitely check out Antonio Damasio's work. It might just change how you think about thinking.